In science, when we are required to demonstrate something as a fact, it can, in some cases, take years of testing and retesting before we get anywhere close to an accurate answer. And even after the amount of work that goes into a scientifically based answer, Young Earth Creationists still choose to answer like this.
Josh wants to know why you're so dogmatic about Young Earth Creationism. He says, are so many scientists mistaken about the age of the Earth?
Yes. Yes, they are.
Well, I can't wait to see how he was able to give such a definitive answer so quickly. There must be so much depth to his research, mustn't there? Please subscribe.
Knowing the age of the Earth isn't science.
Isn't it? Well, silly me and silly science. Dare I ask what tells us accurately how old the Earth is if it isn't science?
We do not have a consistently accurate means to determine the age of the Earth.
Correct. We don't have one consistently accurate way of determining the age of the Earth. We use many different ways. Earth doesn't have a birth certificate that records its information, which means scientists spent hundreds of years struggling to determine the age of the planet. Now, by dating rocks in Earth's ever-changing crust, as well as the rocks in Earth's neighbours, such as the Moon and visiting meteorites, scientists have been able to calculate that the Earth is 4.54 billion years old. Now, obviously, any Young Earth creationist worth their salt will instantly call BS on the whole of science because it destroys their ridiculous ideas about the age of the Earth. So, this leads us to a question. What exactly have Young Earth creationists done to accurately measure their 6,000-year-old Earth? That makes it more plausible than every scientist ever.
Furthermore, those mechanisms that are employed forgets something. That the world changes.
No, it doesn't. I literally just said that one of the scientific methods used to determine the age of the Earth is examining the Earth's ever-changing crust. So I'm afraid that isn't it either. Sorry.
That the world is not constant. That it sometimes changes. For instance, the decay rate of the carbon-14 molecule.
It changes? Very interesting. If only there was a word we could use to describe changes that occur over a very long period of time.
Are we sure the decay rate is the same today as it was 550 years ago? 500, 200 years ago? 6,000 years ago.
Not only do we know for a fact that the rate of decay of carbon-14 is as precise as atomic theory predicts, scientists are not stupid. Any problem with their methods that Young Earth creationists can think up without even opening a textbook, they've answered a long time ago. Now, when someone like Todd here says yes, all of science is wrong, it just demonstrates how incredibly arrogant he is and how willing he is to lie to the people that follow him. There's a pretty good reason why Young Earth creationists hate radiometric dating. Can you guess what it is? Let me know in the comments below.
And so when somebody says the Earth is 13 billion years old, it's not based on science. It's based on interpretation.
Interpretation of what? Of science? Of stories? Of what some guy on the internet said?
And everybody brings a worldview to the interpretive party.
What does a person's worldview have to do with the age of the Earth? Oh yeah, Young Earth creationists have a worldview that tells them that the Earth is only 6,000 years old. Okay, let me rephrase the question then. What does a person's worldview who doesn't believe that the Bible is literal have to do with the age of the Earth? I'll tell you, nothing at all. A worldview denotes a comprehensive set of opinions about the world as the medium and the exercise of human existence. Are opinions always accurate and reliable? No. Do they vary between different groups of people? Yeah. To be able to accurately determine anything, we need to take opinions out of the equation as much as we possibly can. Because opinions are like arseholes. We all have one. Most of them sting.
Everybody, and Christians included, which is why some of our dear Christian brothers and sisters who believe the earth is older than what Genesis 1 clearly states over and over again, repeatedly and redundantly.
And why exactly is it redundantly? Is it because there is absolutely nothing to back any of it up? Genesis 1 is nothing more than the author's opinion and interpretation. Todd said that a person's worldview contributes to how they see the age of the earth. What makes a person's belief that Genesis 1 is literal any different? That is definitely part of a Young Earth creationist worldview, isn't it?
So we need to go to the text and ask it some questions, starting with, what are you? What am I reading here? If you're reading a poem, you want to know it. Because then you understand, okay, there's going to be some symbolic language used here, and it's not meant to be an actual historical description. It's poetry.
Oh, very true, Todd. And if only people like you would do the same with the Bible and stop treating it as if it answers every question about everything. Because it doesn't. Why is it that you're willing to correctly identify poetry for what it is, but you seem incapable of doing the same with the Bible?
Is Genesis 1 poetry? The answer, according to... I don't think there's a Hebrew scholar who would disagree. No, it's not poetry. It's historical narrative.
Well, that was pretty close to being honest for once, which is something I never thought I would see from a young Earth creationist. But if I may make just a small adjustment, the Bible is a fictional historical narrative at best. But let's just for a second go along with the young Earth creationist worldview and say that the Bible is 100% historically accurate. Why would you even think that's a good thing? Have you not read it? Certain parts of the Bible read like a really poor horror movie script. Of course, unless you're into slavery, murder, and rape.
It includes details, names of places, names of people. You don't do that in poetry. You do that in historical narrative.
I bet Arthur Symons will be livid because he wrote a poem called Venice. Venice is a place. And Dylan Thomas from my own hometown of Swansea is probably turning in his grave because he wrote Swansea, an ugly, lovely town, crawling, sprawling by the side of a long and splendid curving shore. And I can confirm with 100% certainty, Swansea is a real place, Todd.
But you also take a look at the timeline not being poetry. You see God laboring like nobody's business to really make it clear. I made this place in 6 24-hour days.
You didn't see God doing anything. You read that in Genesis 1. I read articles all the time about various things, but I don't go around claiming to have seen all those things, because that would make me a liar, like most young Earth creationists, like all young Earth creationists.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and void. Okay. And day 1, he did that. Day 2, he did this. Day 3, he did that. So not only does he say day 3, putting a number before the Hebrew word yom, which means day, which means it always means a 24-hour period. The word yom, you have to admit, semantically, it can mean a longer period of time. It never means billions of years, though. And when there is a number, an adjective defining it, that means it's a 24-hour day.
So you're just gonna keep on referring to Genesis 1 then? I know you can't hear me, and I know it's unlikely that you'll ever see this video, but please, for the love of... You thought I was gonna say God, didn't you? No. But please, Todd, and every other young Earth creationist, you have to come up with something a little better than the Earth is 6,000 years old because God told us in his book.
And that's what we see in Genesis. And as if to put an exclamation point on it, God said evening and the morning were the first day, second day, etc. Evening and morning, unless you somehow translate evening and morning to be thousands or millions of years, you are stuck with a literal interpretation that clearly states God made the place 6 24-hour days a long time ago.
But it's the wrong literal interpretation from a very poor source. Why is it that young Earth creationists can't seem to see for themselves that everything they believe to be true is based on a dusty old book? Now, Todd doesn't look stupid, and I know that looks can be deceiving, but why would a guy who, apart from the nonsense he says in his YouTube video, claim something as stupid as the Earth is only 6,000 years old? It makes no sense at all, and not to mention that it directly opposes everything science is able to demonstrate to us.
And you have to, I don't quite get the need for that. Time can march awfully slowly. 6,000 years is a long time.
Ah, yes, but it's not as long as 4.54 billion years, though, is it?
And we simply are confronted with a question. Because I think this is fair. If you don't agree with me on a young Earth creation position, I'm gonna try to frame this so it doesn't feel like a gotcha question.
You can frame it any way you like. When it comes to young Earth creationism, there are no gotcha questions, only stupid ones.
Can we agree, at least on this, that the Bible is is a historical narrative in Genesis 1, 2, and 3. Can we just agree on that?
No, we can't, because there is no evidence that backs up any of the claims made in Genesis 1, which is fine for young earth creationists, because all they need is blind faith, and they're quite happy with that, and that's fine. If you want to go through life with blinkers on, then good for you. But people like me, and millions of other people, struggle to accept things that can't be backed up by scientific demonstrations, dare I say proof, which is why it makes me laugh when people like Todd say that atheism is a religion.
Then you're going to have to figure out another way to be freed from the demands of those texts. And I would only challenge you, make sure it isn't scientific peer pressure.
Yeah, and what he means by that is don't let science demonstrate to you that Genesis 1 can't possibly be how the earth came into existence, because it's a little bit inconvenient for young earth creationists, isn't it?
I don't think you can find a gap between Genesis 1 and 2. I don't think day age makes any sense at all. But if you are willing to at least start with, okay, it's historical narrative. Now let's go read the thing. If we had an alien and we gave him a Bible for the first time and said, read Genesis 1, do you know what that alien would say? I do.
I have, and there are more holes in it than a string vest. And I think I know exactly what an alien would say.
I'm out there. These creatures are clearly nuts.
Because from their perspective, we would be believing something that simply cannot be demonstrated as being true, which at best would make us a bunch of gullible idiots, and at worst would make us a planet filled with young earth creationist liars.
Miss Mary is wondering, Todd, when do you know it's time to leave your church?
Oh, it's a hard question. That is a big one.
No, it isn't. It's a really easy question. When you realize that everything they teach you is false, and don't worry, I'm talking specifically about young earth creationists here, not Christians in general, that's when it would be the best time to leave your church. Duh.
I would suggest this because there's no way a quick response can encompass all of the considerations that are involved.
Really? Well, you didn't seem to have any problems giving a quick response earlier when the first question asked was if you thought all of science was wrong. But now that someone's asking you about leaving behind everything that you believe in, you can't possibly answer quickly. Weird. Thank you for watching, everyone. Love you, bye.
All right, watch this next. But before you do, make sure you subscribe by order of the Creaky Blinder.